Good afternoon. This is Anton Gaius with the Jerusalem News. We're coming to you live from the courtyard outside the palace of the Governor Pontius Pilate. The governor has called this press conference to update the media on the recent arrest and crucifixion of the rebel Jesus from Nazareth. Joining me is my colleague, Julia Quintus. Julia?
Good afternoon, Anton.
Do you know if the governor will be joining us anytime soon?
Well, we just learned moments ago that Governor Pilate will not be joining us. The update this afternoon is going to be given by his press secretary, Marcus Attius.
Well, that is a surprise. Is there a reason the governor is a no-show?
Well, my understanding is that the Governor Pilate's wife is not feeling well, and he has chosen to be with her this afternoon.
Well, I gotta say, the press secretary, Marcus Attius, is certainly no stranger to this crowd, but I'm certain the press will be very disappointed in the governor's absence. Do you know why we're meeting in the courtyard outside the palace as opposed to inside the main hall?
Well, one can assume that this is out of deference to members of the Jewish press. It is their Passover festival, and evidently, according to Levitical law, one can become ceremonially unclean by entering the home of a Gentile, and this obviously includes the palace of the Roman governor.
Indeed. You know, maybe this is just a much-needed gesture by a governor who has been highly criticized for his strong-arm style of governing this Jewish province.
Well, it is no secret that Pilate has been under a great deal of pressure from the Emperor Tiberius. In fact, it's been said that Tiberius cares very little about what happens in the province of Judea as long as the taxes come in and there are no riots.
Which many may remember has happened almost twice now since Pilate's become governor.
Yes, well, our Jewish friends are very sensitive to any images that might give the appearance of worshiping idols. So it was no small mistake when Pilate rode into town for the first time with flags bearing the image of the emperor and planted them right in the middle of the citadel.
You know, many of our listeners may remember that incident actually led to large-scale protests lasting 6 days. I mean, even under the threat of death, the Jews did not back down. Pilate eventually removed the images. You know, that was political humiliation at its best.
Indeed, but then he hung golden shields bearing the image of the emperor from his place of residence. Outraged Jewish leadership went straight to Tiberius with that one.
You know, that time the emperor himself made Pilate remove the images.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Pilate has been on political thin ice ever since. And as much as he may dislike the Jews, and I'm not saying he does, I'm just saying in the minds of some of those here today that this crucifixion of Jesus may be an attempt to reach across the road and work with the Jews in a more amicable way.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you there, Julia. It appears that Marcus Attius has arrived, and we take you now live to the press conference.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the members of the press. I'd like to apologize on behalf of the governor that he's unable to be here today, but as I'm sure many of you are aware, Governor Pilate's wife has not been feeling well, and he's chosen to be with her at this time. Therefore, if you'll allow me on his behalf, I'd like to read a short statement, and then I will be taking some questions. Last night, at approximately 9 p.m., the Jewish Sanhedrin received a tip that the rebel, Jesus of Nazareth, was holed up in the Garden of Gethsemane. The governor's office was contacted, and permission was granted for a number of Roman soldiers to proceed in cooperation with the temple police to that area. Once at Gethsemane, Jesus was identified by a credible source and apprehended without incident.
Who was the source?
It was Judas Iscariot, one of his followers. After being examined by the proper Jewish authorities, it was determined that a capital offense had occurred. Since crimes punishable by death can only be granted by the governor's office, he was therefore brought before Governor Pilate early this morning.
What time was he brought before Pilate?
When was the trial?
Just a minute. Hold on. I'll answer your questions, but allow me to finish the statement first. Because Jesus is from Galilee, the jurisdiction technically falls to the office of the Tetrarch Herod Antipas. He was therefore sent to him. Herod interrogated Jesus and evidently refused the jurisdiction, sending him back to the governor.
Did Herod find him innocent?
Claudia, please, allow me to finish the statement. After a very thorough interrogation by Governor Pilate, it was determined that a capital offense had not been committed. What? I repeat, what? Governor Pilate found no crime worthy of a death sentence. But at the strong recommendation and the consistent demands of the Jewish authorities, Governor Pilate has allowed the sentence of crucifixion to be carried out. I would like to point out that according to the usual custom of the season and the generosity of the governor's office, a prisoner was offered for release. Jesus of Nazareth or Barabbas the murderer were the choices. Barabbas was chosen.
Whoa, what?
Therefore, Jesus and 2 other criminals were sentenced to be crucified. And that sentence is being carried out as we speak. I'll now take a few questions.
Thank you, Marcus. You said Jesus was taken without incident.
Yes.
We have reports that one of Jesus' followers attacked a soldier, cut off his ear, and Jesus miraculously healed him.
I've heard that rumor. I can't confirm that. But what I can tell you is that there was a small band of fishermen present who, when confronted, went fleeing into the night to save their own skins. I have no report of any injuries.
If there were a small band of fishermen, why were so many soldiers dispatched in the middle of the night?
Well, evidently, the Jewish authorities felt this was an urgent matter. The governor likes to cooperate with them whenever possible.
Marcus.
Yes, you in the back.
Thank you, sir. Rebecca from the Jewish Chronicle. You said that Jesus was brought to the governor this morning. What time this morning?
Early, shortly after sunrise.
And what was the charge?
Officially, it was blasphemy. And as I'm sure you are aware, according to Jewish law, that is a crime worthy of death.
Yes, it's a very serious crime, which is why it involves a formal trial. A trial before the Sanhedrin in the temple. So if Jesus was arrested last night, then how is it that he was brought to the governor by this morning?
Well, it's my understanding that some of the process started much earlier than that.
What part of the process? Legal matters are conducted in the temple during the day.
Okay. I'm going to turn the briefing over to Levi Stein. He's the governor's advisor on Jewish affairs, and he's more up to date on these matters. Levi, thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Good afternoon. There were some informal proceedings that took place after the arrest that helped speed along an early morning trial.
Mr. Stein, where did these informal proceedings occur and who conducted them?
In all fairness, I think we should probably take questions from other members of the press.
Yes. Where did these informal proceedings occur and who conducted them?
I believe the former high priest Annas and the current high priest Caiaphas were present and examined the prisoner.
And where was this?
At the palace of the high priest.
Do the former and current high priest often examine prisoners in the middle of the night at their palace?
No. This was a complicated case with several charges that needed looking into.
Were there any witnesses present?
Yes, there were.
So there were several charges and witnesses presented, but you're saying this wasn't a formal proceeding?
Yes, that is what I am saying. I'm sure it will be looked into.
Excuse me, Angela with the Roman Press. Can you confirm if any members of the Sanhedrin were present at the house of Caiaphas?
I can neither confirm nor deny that. I think we're missing the point here, people.
With all due respect, some may feel this is a major issue. If any members of the Sanhedrin were present at night at the house of Caiaphas to question and charge Jesus, that's an illegal meeting. It casts a pretty big shadow over all these proceedings. Why the rush? Why the secrecy?
Regardless of what happened last night, it is no secret, ma'am, that this morning in the temple, before the official gathering of the Sanhedrin, this Jesus of Nazareth was asked plainly, "Are you the Son of God?" And he responded, and I quote, "You are right in saying that I am." And he went on to say that from now on, the Son of Man will be seated at the right hand of the mighty God. And that is blasphemy and punishable by death.
Sir, in the Jewish law perhaps, not the Roman.
Look, I'll take it from here. Look, I think we've answered enough questions regarding the religious trial. Are there any questions regarding civil issues?
Yes. Earlier today, Governor Pilate said, and I quote, "You brought me this man as one who is inciting the people to rebellion. I have examined him in your presence and found no basis for your charges against him. Neither has Herod." My question has two parts. What led Governor Pilate to believe that he was innocent? And if innocent, why then was he crucified?
It's a little complicated. You see, the charge of blasphemy is of no concern to the governor. That's a religious issue best to be settled by them. However, it was also stated that Jesus claimed to be a king. Now that is a problem. We have one king, the Emperor Tiberius, who you all know Governor Pilate is wholly and completely dedicated to.
Then how then could he be innocent?
Governor Pilate asked Jesus directly. He said, "Are you a king?" And Jesus answered him, "You are right in saying that I'm a king."
King of what?
However, his kingdom, according to Jesus, is not of this world. And a king whose kingdom is not of this world is of no threat to Caesar.
Well, then why was he crucified?
Because, Rebecca of the Jewish Chronicle, this province of Judea is Jewish. And the leaders of this Jewish province said that he was a threat to Caesar and demanded that he be crucified. Furthermore, they insinuated that if Jesus were to be let go, that Governor Pilate would be no friend of Caesar. A false and baseless accusation. However, Governor Pilate has better things to do with his time than to defend himself against such outlandish statements. So the crucifixion was granted.
Marcus,
Yes.
what was the significance of the governor washing his hands?
I think Governor Pilate's words speak for themselves. He said plainly, "I am innocent of this man's blood."
Well, then what about the crowd's response? Let his blood be on us and on our children.
I have no response to that.
There were 3 men put to death. Why was Jesus singled out to be lashed 39 times and beaten so badly?
Governor Pilate had hoped to spare Jesus' life and thought that by punishing him it might satisfy the Jewish authorities. It did not. As regards to the brutality of the beating, well, sometimes soldiers get out of hand, and we are looking into that.
Well, there are reports that a crown made of thorns was forced on his head, a scarlet robe put on him while they beat him with their fist, a staff, and spit on him. Is this normal treatment for prisoners?
I said we're looking into that.
Marcus, was a civilian involved in the crucifixion?
No, that is not true. Jesus was unable to carry his cross all the way to the place of execution.
And that was Golgotha?
Yes, the execution is at Golgotha. After collapsing several times, a volunteer helped him carry the cross the rest of the way.
I'm sorry, Marcus, a volunteer?
Yes, one from the crowd was asked to help. He carried the cross, that's all.
Do we have a name for that volunteer?
Yes, it's one Simon of Cyrene.
Now, was he a follower of Jesus?
No.
Do you have a comment about the sign that was placed on the cross above Jesus' head?
What sign is that?
You know nothing about the sign that was placed above Jesus' head? Obviously, it was written so that everyone could read it. It was written in Latin, Greek, and Aramaic. It says, King of the Jews.
I can ask the governor about that if you'd like.
The Jewish leadership is outraged. The soldiers wouldn't have the authority to post such a sign. But you're saying your office had nothing to do with it?
I'm saying I can ask the governor about it. I'll just take a few more questions.
Marcus, will the bodies be taken care of by sundown?
Yes, the governor is well aware that the Sabbath begins at sundown. The bodies will be dealt with before then.
What if they're not dead by then?
Well, then they will be made so.
How?
Well, there are proper execution techniques for that. I'm not going into those details.
Do they still break the prisoner's legs?
Yes, Amelia. If necessary, they will break the prisoner's legs to hasten their death. And that's all on that topic I'm going to answer.
Marcus, the Jews rely heavily on our sacrificial system for the forgiveness of sins. John the Baptist, whom Herod had executed, claimed that Jesus was the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. Would Advisor Levi care to comment on that?
I've just been informed that the prisoner, Jesus of Nazareth, is dead. We may be experiencing an earthquake. Thank you for coming. Please exit as quickly and safely as possible.